It's 7 o'clock in Southern California, and time for the Thursday night D-Star Roundtable for October 5th, 2017. This is Mike, N6HKH, your net control. This roundtable is held every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 0200 UTC, on XRF002A and a constellation of X reflectors, including XRF 310A, XRF 555A, XLX 212 Alpha, and our new dual mode reflector XLX 313 Alpha. And there's some news on XLX 212A that we hope to talk about a little bit later. This is a technical roundtable dedicated to D-Star and other open digital systems, specifically DMR, and inching towards Fusion as they are open systems. It is a group effort, so to join a discussion, start a topic, or ask a question, please key up when I call for stations. Please remember, though, to not quick key or tailgate. I will pause regularly to let you key up, and I ask that participating stations do the same. We don't take formal check-ins or do a roll call to give us more time to talk D-Star. Net Control is online at roundtable.tech. That's roundtable, all in word, .tech. Just enter that in the address field of your favorite browser, and it'll take you to the D-Star Roundtable Forum Board. And there, you'll find a real-time chat feature called Shoutbox. And you can use that to contact me as well as to post information that's relevant to the topic at hand, especially links and quick notes. And I note that we've got a few postings that we're going to need to go through, or we should, and at least I would think they're of some interest to all of you. So we ask stations offering a web address to post the URL or DNS in the shout box so that those listening now or later can link to that website or document location. Again, just go to roundtable, all in word, .tech to see what's posted there, to learn more about this net and the activities of the kings of digital, as we like to call this system. Now, at the close of the roundtable, tonight's shoutbox is moved to the shoutbox history, right above the general roundtable discussion board, so that people listening now or later can review it. Podcast listeners, of course, get the shoutbox downloaded automatically. So what you see tonight on the shoutbox, even though it may scroll by and out and off your window, because I think it only shows 15 or 20 shouts, or chats, so to speak, we will gather them all up and move them into the shoutbox history, because some people listen to this digitally later on. Although, I'd sure like to think that more people would listen live and help us with questions and answers and topics, but I understand how it is. So first up tonight, we're going to do announcements, stations with announcements for this Thursday night D-Star Roundtable. Please key up now. Well, nobody keyed up on that. The only announcement, there's actually two of them. One is for PacificCon. We talked about it last week. It's actually described by the ARRL. I noted in one of their emailers, they call it the San Ramon Hamvention, and I don't know why. It's been known as PacificCon for a very long time. It's very popular. It's not just for those on the West Coast, because it's in Central to Northern California, but it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of digital stuff. In fact, they even have a digital dinner that's separate in and of itself from the PacificCon, but I believe it takes place nearby, and a lot of digital enthusiasts attend. I know a lot of the people that participate here on the roundtable will be attending, and we look forward to taking reports from them. But that's coming up this month, October 20, 21, and 22, 2017. Get your reservations in. You can just about go anywhere, in particular the ARRL website, to learn more information, or better yet, go to www.pacificcon.org, and I'll post that URL now that they have one set up on the shop box in just a few. Other announcements we'll take you now. Please key up. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard. Let me just find my notes here. I'm sorry I'm stumbling around a bit. There's a lot going on tonight, and hopefully we'll have a pretty full net. For those of you that are connecting to the roundtable for tonight's net on XLX212 Alpha, please be advised that some new stuff has happened with that particular XLX multi-protocol reflector. So 212 has been upgraded to the new version of DXRFD, so that it handles both DMR and D-Star. DFRXD, I think it's version 2.0, and it's been rebuilt on some new images that are running Debian 9.1. And what we thought we'd do is resolve the problem that would occur, leaving both DMR and D-Star capabilities on 212, which if somebody were to key up on DMR, for example, and it's linked on module A to the remaining members of the constellation of reflectors here on the Kings of Digital System or network. So to give the DMR guys a standalone reflector to use, we're going to initially put it to use as a DMR only standalone reflector, still part of the constellation of reflectors. And by this I mean that if you'll notice, many of the reflectors in the constellation, in fact all of them, are connected on module A to each one, and they're persistently linked. That includes even the new transcoding server 313 on Alpha. And some of the, and I think module D is also connected across several of the reflectors. So we're going to simply unlink XLX212 from module A, leaving it the same as it was before, with the new operating software that allows the dual mode capability, but not transcoding, and setting it for DMR only, to give, as I said, DMR users a standalone reflector to chat on. Those seem to be becoming more popular, and we'll see how it goes. Now, keep in mind that XLX313, of course, is still here, and we haven't reduced the number of reflectors here on the constellation, but provided a service for the DMR group, and in fact, it's getting to be popular enough that as DMR reflectors, that there's actually a list of available DMR reflectors. Just a minute. And there may be more than one, compiling those reflectors, XLX reflectors, running version DXRFD version 2, so that they can use them with their hotspots and not be part of a constellation, not bump into, not a constellation, but I mean a group of reflectors. That is, it's not part of a linked system as to this specific module. So I hope this is understandable. So if you're on the core of this, is that if you use XLX212 to connect for the purposes of this net, that is to you use XLX212 alpha, pick another reflector, because XLX212 alpha at module A is not going to be linked to the other reflectors, so that DMR will not bump into D-Star on a non-transcoding reflector. And you have several others to choose from. You just connect to one of the others on the constellation. XRF002A, XRF31, I'm sorry, let me back up, 310A, and you've got XRF0, I gotta tell you, I am just having some terrible trouble. XRF555 alpha or XLX313 alpha. Now, this is confusing to anyone. It obviously is to me. Be sure to keep and ask questions. So that's the only other announcement I have. Let me see if anyone has any comments about what we're doing with XLX212 before I proceed. Stations, please be up. Alrighty, well, later on we hope to be talking a bit more about how to put XLX212 to use for those DMR enthusiasts that the open system version of DMR should be very explicit about. Okay, any other announcements? In case you come up with one while I've been talking here for several minutes, we'll take you now. Please keep up.
N7TA.
And there's Tom, N7TAE. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike. Hello to you and everybody on the net. I just put a shout up there. We got a new feature on QuadNet. We're now tracking StarNet groups and StarNet group users. It's kind of quiet right now. I don't think there's any users logged into any of the StarNet groups, but you can go over there and see what that's all about. And I've been working on the website, cleaning it up and adding some more information about how to get connected to QuadNet and what kind of things you can do over there. So back to you, Mike. This is N7TAE.
All right, Tom, thank you. And I see your post. So can you take a moment to describe StarNet for those that are not familiar with StarNet? We've talked about QuadNet, and I think most everybody by now should be knowledgeable about QuadNet. But StarNet, maybe not so much so. Can you tell us a little bit what we would hear from the StarNet group? N7TAE, go ahead.
Yeah, StarNet groups are like reflectors, except you route to them instead of link to them. They're very cool little tools that I think were first invented by John Hayes, K7AE, and then I think he turned the code over to Jonathan Naylor, and they're part of his distribution. They're very nice little tools. You route to them. Once you subscribe to them, you don't link to them, you subscribe to them. You'll hear all the chatter that's going through that group. Groups have the magical property that you can link to either a X reflector or a DCS reflector if you want to, so it can be a gateway into a larger universe, and they're pretty cool. I had Will set me up with my own private little reflector, so if I want to have a kind of a offsite conversation with somebody, I can ask them to subscribe over there, and we can talk and don't disturb anybody else. And they're nice little tools. I think out of all the routing mechanisms that we support, it's probably the most powerful one with these groups. There were earlier this morning, there were I think 5 or 6 different active groups that the discussions were taking place on, and pretty nice little device. And I think we're the only IRC-DDB network now that tracks these devices, these software packages on their network.
And
very cool. Well, I appreciate it, and thanks for that. Tom. All right. Other announcements for the roundtable before we plow into the roundtable forum board and some of the cool posts and other things that are percolating there. Stations, please, Kia. Alrighty, nothing there. And I need to correct myself. I seem to be doing that a lot more lately. I don't know if I need to look at the vitamin store for memory retention, but when I described the upgrade to XLX212, it is not DXRFD because that software is for the XRF, the X reflectors. It's actually version 2 of XLXD, which is what runs the XLX reflectors. And I appreciate being corrected on that because we don't like to give out bad information. And as I usually mention, but it's usually later on when I get into topics or when we discuss any concepts, if you don't understand it, certainly key up and question what you've heard. If you think I misspoke, feel free to tell me so because I'm not going to take offense to it. I don't like to do that. And if you have new information or something updated from what you're hearing here on the Roundtable Forum Board, please, by all means, key up. You're not going to get anyone upset because you may challenge or add to their discussion, and we don't let stations get on and get huffy anyway. So, with that being said, let's continue on. I just want to take a moment, though, right now to pause to see if anyone has any follow-up to last week's discussions. Usually stations that listen to the podcast or recording of this net sometimes, have a V8 moment by putting their palm to their forehead and saying, I know something about that, or they have a moment where they're scratching their head saying, I'm listening to this, but just something's not right. And we hope that those stations would join us live and ask questions about what they heard last week. And this is now when we're going to be doing that. So, stations, please key up. And so it seems that we didn't get a response tonight, which we don't often do, but sometimes you just never know. So, alrighty, let's take a look at the shout box. We've got a fair number of them, and I'm going to take them somewhat out of order. Don WB5EKU posted what is described as an interesting offering from Kenwood, which appears to be the Kenwood NX5000. So I thought, and maybe it's NEXEDGE is what Kenwood describes it as, but it seems that it puts NXDN, DMR, and P25 all in one portable radio, maybe even a mobile. I'm not certain. Let me just see if WB5EKU might be able to join us and just give us a little heads up on that particular offering and what he found interesting about it, or maybe he posted it to explain that it's completely not interesting. Let's find out. WB5EKU, are you with us? Go ahead.
Yes, it's HPH WB5EKU. Good evening, Mike, and everyone like that. Roundtable, excuse me. Yeah, I had seen that. Kenwood has been touting that for a while, but it hasn't been released. And all of a sudden, I see that they're planning on getting it released. And apparently, you can buy it in a couple of different flavors. I don't think it will do all of the modes simultaneously. What it'll do, you have to get it either for DMR and P25 and analog, or a DMR and an XDN and analog. But there are a couple of different ways you can buy it. I do plan to go up to Pacificon, by the way, and was hoping to talk to Kenwood up there, but apparently Kenwood is not going to be there. Just ICOM and Yaesu are going to the big ones that are going to be there. So I'll find out what I possibly can about it. knowing Kenwood, it's not going to be a very inexpensive radio. I have not seen a price, although I haven't pursued the pricing of it that much, because I don't know exactly when they're going to release it. But I think it's going to be released possibly before the end of the year. I could be wrong there. And one other note on Pacificon. If you plan on going, register before October the 8th, and you can save a few bucks on the registration. And 6HKH, WB5EKU.
All right, Don, I appreciate it. So, what are the room rates? Do you know? I didn't see them listed on the convention website. I'm sure that if I pushed down through them, I would. But do you know about the range of the rooms? Go ahead.
No, I don't. I actually have to look at my reservation. I got a reservation at the San Ramon Marriott, which is where Pacificon is actually being held. I got it quite a few months ago. I don't know if they're sold out or not. And if you really force me, I think it's right now it's about $125 a night. I think. Registration is only like $25 now. After the 8th, registration goes up to $30. So, but that's about the rooms are going for. I haven't been to this venue since they moved out of Santa Clara, so it's going to be an interesting trip. It'll be interesting to see. I understand it's a little bit smaller than the venue at Santa Clara, so we'll see how jam-packed all of the displays and all of the seminars will be. I'll give you a report on Thursday night, because I'm probably going to get up there Thursday, and then the following week I'll be able to give some sort of report on it. I'm sure quite a few other stations are going also. WB5EKU.
K6.
All right, Don, thanks. I wasn't being nosy. I just was curious, and sometimes, sometimes these room rates are outrageous, and other times they're a good deal. So, all right, thank you. K6JM. Thanks for being here. Go ahead.
Hi, Mike. Ian and Ed. Two topics, and they're both related to what we just talked about there. One is I did not know about this Kenwood, the NX 5000 series, but I was just poked around. I asked Google about NX 5000 price, found a little two-way radio express products list, and an NX 5200 K2, which is a VHF version of this multiple, NXDN, DMR, P25, HT, is listed $825, but they express products people have it for $618. So I think what Don just said seems to be confirmed here by that little search. And then the other thing is Pacificon. If people who will be attending, just mention that the Saturday morning at 9:20, Jim, KI6ZUM, and I will be sharing a time slot. It's a 70-minute time slot in a fairly large room, talking about multi-mode, and he'll be talking about the ZUM products that Bruce and others are offering. And then I'll be talking about, in more general, about multi-mode products and software. So Saturday morning, 9:20 would be if you're interested in digital voice. Back to you, Mike. This is K6JM.
Well, nice to have a speaker at one of the forums here tonight with us. A fairly prestigious thing to do, I'm going to say so, whether you agree or not. But for those of you attending, do not miss a presentation by K6JM, Jim, And I appreciate him tooting his own horn, and I understand that maybe even Don WB5EKU might elbow his way in to give a few words. You know, those forums at PacificCon are really pretty good, and you know, they're just different, I guess, than the typical forum you may see, especially the more generic ones that you find in Dayton. But good deal, and hopefully we can get a report from you and Don and others about some of the cool stuff that hopefully will be shown. Now, Kenwood's absence from PacificCon, I don't understand that, but oh well, it's their sales and their decision, so very cool. Or uncool, I really should say, for Kenwood. So, all right, appreciate it, and the update on the NX5000. Thank you, Don, for keeping an eye on gear that we may have some interest in. So, continuing down on the some of the Shoutbox posts, KG5TNK, who we heard from last week, posted a chat or a shout concerning a post he made in the radio programming file section of the Roundtable Forum Board about a code plug for the TYT MD 2017 for use with the OpenSpot. And, in fact, if you go over to the Roundtable Forum Board under Code Plugs and Access Point Files, and within there you'll find a post entitled Using TYT MD2017 with OpenSpot. And at the very end of that post, Ryan has kindly posted a file, OpenSpot MD 2017 code plug. It's got a file extension for specific to the TYT radios. And, you know, I thought this was very cool of him to do that because it follows on our discussion about starting to post code files for those that want to get their hotspots and other devices to be able to connect to the XLX313 Alpha and for that matter, how to connect on using DMR and on DStark. So, you know, I timed out again, I think. Just a minute. Let me kick myself a bit for not paying attention to the timer. All right, punishment has been inflicted. So, anyway, I don't know where I left off because I was paying too much attention to the post rather than the screen. But first of all, I wanted to see if KG5TNK wanted to add anything concerning his post of this particular code plug. And well, we'll just leave it at that. He doesn't have to, but KG5TNK. Anything you'd like to comment on? Because and I really appreciate the post. I'm sure that those with that radio do as well. KG5TNK, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, this is Ryan, KG5TNK, listening in again this week. It's not just for getting into the constellation, just for that radio to set it up. I had trouble figuring it out for myself. If you have that radio, even if you're not using it with the OpenSpot, it shows you all the different parts of the CPS software for it, how things interact, so you can figure it out a lot easier. You know, open it up, figure it out, open your own code plug and go. And I was looking at a blank page going, what do I do? Had to figure it out. So it's more than just coming back to the 2017 with the OpenSpot. They can be used for other purposes, just for that particular radio, though.
Got it. And I know I appreciate it, and I'm sure those with that radio do as well. And I want to take a moment to see what interest you may have in code plugs, and just saying, okay, look, guys, please post code plugs. It doesn't answer the question of what models of radios, what code plugs are needed, and more importantly, people keying up and And I mean, they can't describe a code plug if they don't have one, and those that need it are best to key up and describe the radios they have and the situations or the CPS or whatever it is that they need, and see who can contribute to this particular group. Now, if you scroll up within the Roundtable Forum board to scroll down, actually, to the Open Digital System File Sharing and How-Tos, the first board up is Code Plugs, aka radio programming files, and as well as two other folders that have other relevant or other information relevant to Open Digital Systems. And last Thursday, we talked about trying to provide code plugs for the very purpose, such as the one that KG5TNK was kind enough to put together and post for everybody's use. So, is there a need for particular models of radios or circumstances or hotspots that or devices? We've got to include everything that would be of interest to you, and perhaps if you can help us give an idea of the radios that would for which code spots or code plugs would be of help, would help those deciding what to post and not post. So if I can, let me know. Please key up and tell me the radio and the type of device and your interest in a code plug, and let's just see if we can't get some of this posted between tonight and next week. So, stations, please key up. I can't believe that nobody would like to have code plugs for their radio and have help in their CPS and setting up the radios for use with, because you have a radio, and how do you get it to work with OpenSpot? How do you get it to work with the DV4 Mini? What can you do to, besides, I guess, you could learn programming from top to bottom. But the reality is that to get started, a code plug is helpful because you can study it, see how it was set up, and then, as Ryan suggested, modify it to suit your needs. But it's difficult for those that have cleverly and time-tested programming, radio programming, to contribute to the code spot of the code plug folder. If we don't know what the need is, and so I thought it'd be interesting to find out. Apparently, not a lot of people have a need for code plugs, but that, they're just too popular. So again, what are we looking for? What should we think about? What should stations consider if they have them in posting here? Your help is appreciated and needed. Please key up now.
K6KD.
K6KD. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, Mike and Annette. I suspect that people who have been using DMR for a while, already have code plugs, because otherwise they wouldn't be using DMR. And it may be that the people that are currently on D-Star that are thinking of going to DMR, may not have, maybe just in the process of thinking, and may not have purchased a radio yet. But I think we can identify what the most popular radios are. The TYT MD380 and the MD390, which both I'm pretty sure the code plugs are interchangeable. That's a very popular radio. The Terra TR7400, certainly the Connect Systems, the CSS. I don't know if all the CSS models have standard code plugs. I'm sure the dual bands are separate from the single bands, but I think those are probably the most common radios offhand. So I think that I think it's an excellent idea, because in the past, back in the D-Star days, this never got traction because people always felt that there would be too many differences. Differences in hotspot frequencies, differences in repeaters, and so on. And I wrote way back a year ago. I wrote a program called Hotspot Programmer to assist in the generation of radio programming for hotspots in particular. But I think that the situation with DMR is different because I think, as Ryan pointed out very well in his email in his thread, that the challenge is the differences. How do you understand? You open it up and you see a blank sheet. How do you figure out digital contact zone, RX group, channel, maybe scan list? How does it all make sense? And I think if you see a code plug, it wouldn't even have to be for your radio, except most likely, the CPS, the software you have, will only be for your radio, and it'll only open up, files that are either for that model or for a close by model. But I guess just to sum up, there's a handful of standard radios, and I think those would be the primary ones to target.
Well, that makes sense. And so we'll leave it at this, that if you have a code plug and you'd like to share and help others out that are looking to connect, and I just was trying. Somebody was at one point sent me a list of the most popular code plugs for DMR radios and connecting to various reflector configurations, and I can't find that list right now. If I do, I'll try to post the need. But feel free to post it, create a link, and we'll be happy to both let you discuss it here on the net and or get other people working with this, because code plugs just are increasingly popular. They're important, and they help. They help get people going, and that's the key. And then we just need to push them along a bit to learn programming basics, which you almost have to learn anyway on DMR using the CPS software. So this is just a service that we like to provide to make things easier, and so feel free to post in there. All right, any final comments on code plugs and their use, or any questions about why code plugs may be important to some? Please key up.
K6J.
K6JN, go ahead.
To add to all that, what I have found with code plugs for DMR radios is they help teach you how to program them. You start with somebody who's kind of knowledgeable, who's put together something that they like, and it may or may not be usable in your region, but you can look at how they did it and learn how to do it. And you can learn a lot easier than just reading instruction manuals. So I find them extremely valuable. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I either got a code plug from the NorCal DMR group or from the Papa system. I'm not sure. But in neither case was it quite what I wanted, but it was a great start. And using that, I kind of learned rather quickly compared to probably if I'd been trying to read the manual. So I just thought I'd pass it on. This is K6JM.
And we appreciate that. Anyone else, please key up. All right, no response to that. So continuing on the shoutbox, continuing down the shoutbox, man. There is a question posted by W5DKD that says he's needing to find how to connect to XLX313 through a DV4 Mini. That is what he uses for DMR. Of course, the DV4 Mini is intended for DMR. You can connect to a lot of things and use it for various modes. But he wants to find out how to connect the DV4 Mini to the XLX313 transcoding reflector. So, who can help him out? Stations, please key up. I have a tough time believing that we've got all these DV4 Mini people, and it's a popular device. It was, tested by some early on, but adopted by many, and, it's come along, and plus it's just convenient. A lot of people bought them, and there's a lot of help out there for them. But we don't often talk about using the DV4 Mini, but it's time that we do, and there shouldn't be a secret about this. It's just connecting to an XLX reflector. I don't think the fact that it's a transcoding reflector makes any difference. I'll take contrary thoughts on that. But for those of you with DV4 Minis, here's a station that really has I thought, a reasonably simple question. I know some DV4 Mini users have been hanging out on the XLX313. They certainly hang out here on the roundtable in the Constellation. So I beg of DV4 Mini users for, a little help here. The question is worth answering because it was asked. Stations, please key up. Well, what a disappointment. I don't know. Maybe we need to have some sort of tone alert for DV4 Mini users to come to the roundtable and talk. But let's do this. For those that see that post, you can either reply in the shout box, although keep in mind that this particular post will disappear after tonight's net, and it might be a better idea to go to the current discussions folder, because this would be a current discussion, which is the very top of the Roundtable Forum board, well, about midway down after the introductory stuff, and start a post about connecting to 313 using a DV4 Mini. Oddly, right on top is a post about connecting to XLX313 generally, and let me find out from John, K6KD, if this is intended for a specific device or gateway or just in general how to go about getting to our 4K transcoding reflector. Maybe John can describe that a bit more, and not replying to John's post, but just creating a post about, okay, DV4 Mini guys, here's how you go about doing it. That would be the best place to post it in current discussions. But in the meantime, let's talk to someone who should know a fair amount about 4K transcoding. K6KD, what's the story on your post there? Go ahead.
Okay, well, Mike, the information in the threads in this area on the roundtable address the OpenSpot and the MMDVM host with DMR Gateway. They don't address the DV4 Mini, so I certainly hope somebody maybe listening to the podcast, if nobody listening live knows anything about it or can help, I hope somebody listening to the podcast will, because I steered Bill W5DKD over to the roundtable. He posted in the X-Reflector forum that I maintain for X-Reflectors. He said, I'm using a DV4 Mini for my DMR hotspot and was wondering if anyone can help point me in the right direction to add masters to the Mini. So he's a little bit more specific. He needs to add masters to the Mini. As of now, there are 4 XLX reflectors listed, but XLX313 is not one of them. Any help would be appreciated. So I responded. I said, I don't know the answer, but there's a pretty good chance if you post your question in the shout box at the bottom of roundtable.tech that it will be addressed during the roundtable. It could possibly even be answered prior to that. Well, so anyway, just as an appeal for anybody listening via podcast, if you could, if you could help out, that would be great. Back to Ned.
All right, John, I agree. And again, just post that in the, just create a new folder in the new post, and the current discussions folder, actually be a new thread, I guess we call it, and help the station out. You can, because those posts in the current discussions folder persist, whereas the shout box vaporizes, well, carried over to the shout box history, but posting a reply in the shout box, may not have the intended benefit of being seen by, well, there's no hinge to the question there. So, all right, appreciate that, John. Anyone have any comments, questions, concerns about connecting to or using XLX313? Right now it's connected on to the net through Module A, as would be the case with the other reflectors in the constellation. But has anyone have any questions in the time that they've put the transcoding, the 4K transcoding server, I might say, XLX313, to use? Stations, please key up.
K6JM.
K6JM, go ahead.
Okay, Mike, I gotta think the way I feel here is that I'm kind of embarrassed that I don't know more about the DVE4 Mini's evolution. I got one when they first came out, played with it again a year later, but it's been a while, and they've done a lot of things. I enjoy going to the Wireless Holdings booth at Dayton, talking to Uli and others in the booth, Torsten, creative people. And I'm embarrassed. When it first came out, you could do D-Star, you could do DMR, and they had created their own DMR network called DMR Plus. And then Brandmeister came along, and they've kind of been in a fight between DMR Plus and Brandmeister. But to the extent that they now support the XLX masters, I just don't know. So I'm embarrassed to say that. But this conversation is going to cause me to go do some reading. I wish, I feel like I should know the answer, but I don't. Back to you. This is K6JM.
Well, even though we have you listed on the board of someone who knows something about everything, don't feel embarrassed that there's something that you don't know about, even though you might have it. And that's, of course, one reason why we're here. But, it's just, the DV4 Mini users, while there's a fair number of them, don't often key up during the roundtable. We get posts from time to time. I don't know why. Maybe there is an inherent difficulty with them connecting to this net, or better yet, to the constellation, whether module A or else, or another module. And maybe there's a larger problem than we suspect. I mean, it's like anything else. If nobody complains or says anything, then you have no way of knowing if it's, these devices and radios work correctly, successfully, or if there's just a legion of people out there who are, banging these devices against the wall trying to get them to work, especially on the new XLX reflectors, whether they're dual mode or transcoding or otherwise. So hopefully we'll get greater participation from the DV4 Mini crowd, especially in light of this as of yet unknown delivery date, unknown pricing, unknown much DV4 Mobile that's been heralded since, 2 days ago, but now seems to at least one or two vendors. I think Gigaparts is actually taking reservations. We don't know how much you're going to pay for it. We don't know when it's going to become available, but get in line. So, why not? We're going to see them coming up pretty soon, and we'll see just how easily they connect and how they work. So, especially mobile, that would be interesting. All right, anything further? Well, I mean, where we were at is looking for stations that either had comments on or questions about or have any issues. I mean, we're not here to tell you, that you have to connect part A to part B and solder at C and then, freeze part D while you use a heat sink on part C. We're not into that. But, in a larger sense, is 313 working for you, and have any issues arisen? This is, we're looking for feedback, but we're also looking to help. Well, we're looking to help people. So, stations, please, Kia. Well, I didn't see anybody there, so I guess things are working well. I mean, there's been a lot of activity on the 4K transcoder, and taking a look at the dashboard, there's a fair number of stations that are with us there, both on modules A and B. So people are having fun with it. People are putting it to use. Nobody's just in listening. For example, on the D-Star side, I haven't heard anything that would tip me off per se to somebody coming in on DMR, at least from the D-Star side, and vice versa. So I don't think anybody's spitting on it, but I'm glad to hear that it's working for those that have connected, and that there doesn't seem to be a lot of difficulty. If you would prefer, you can certainly post something in the shop box, and especially after you listen to this particular net, and ask that question. We'll be happy to get on it. You can listen to the answer later or take a look at the shop box. Although it's certainly far more interesting and appealing if we could have a station ask live and get some, gathering of stations who may comment and help you out. It's certainly better than just one or two posts that tend to get truncated. But when you have an open mic, you tend to talk. Of course, that's what we're supposed to do. Alrighty, well, we will move on. Don't have any problem doing that. Now, we've got another question that is posted in another part of the Roundtable Forum board, and that is in the connecting via OpenSpot using Fusion or DMR, and you get to it by scrolling down to the Open Digital System file sharing, and there, let's see. Let me find it again. In the Open Fusion /YSF reflectors folder, which is the middle one. And there is a post by a station that is asking a question and is having some difficulty, which makes sense. But here is the question. It's at the end of that particular post, and I'll summarize by that the post is that he bought an FT70D Delta. He cannot transmit on his OpenSpot using that radio. He uses his OpenSpot on D-Star and DMR with no issues, but there must be some setting that is incorrect on his FT70, and he suggests maybe some default profile. He has the frequency set as simplex and DV mode, and he can connect on the OpenSpot using C4FM, and he goes on to describe that. And says he can hear QSOs, but when he transmits, he just hears a hum. So he's asking for, and he goes on to say the OpenSpot does not show any connection on transmit. The FT70 seems to work fine, and he can hit fusion repeaters if there are any in DV mode. So anyway, he wants to know how can he resolve this? how can he use the FT70D with his open spot to transmit and get into the constellation, or to put the transcoding server to use? Any ideas would be appreciated. The call sign is WR3Y. You'll see his pseudonym is Longboat, although we prefer that stations use their call sign. So, stations who can help this station out, please key up. KF9TA. KF9TA, welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I ran into the exact same problem with my FT70, and all you have to do is in the settings for the hotspot, for the open spot, just set it under the modem settings, set it to C4 FM half deviation, and it'll work fine.
Alrighty, say that one more time so we can all get it, and hopefully get a post up there for that. Once again, KF9TA. Go ahead.
Yeah, under the settings for the open spot, in the modem settings, set it to C4 FM half deviation.
Great, I appreciate that. So, and that's based upon, as you said, you had that problem before, and there's got to be others that have run into that. Thank you very much. So, WR3Y, who I presume listens to a recording of the net, he posted, actually posted it earlier, so today, so maybe he is listening. But anyway, anyone have any questions about this fix for this particular request for help on this? Is that going to do it? And anyone have anything to add to? Because it seems to be that the problem is settings in the open spot, not on the radio stations. Please key up. Well, that we heard. So KF9TA, thank you. We appreciate that, and I'm sure that Longboat does as well. Alrighty. Anyone have anything else arising from any reads on the Roundtable Forum board in any of the categories or folders, or anything that you'd like to follow up on that either you posted or others posted that you'd like to talk about? Let's do that now, and please key up right now as well.
N8ALN.
N8ALN. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Good evening, N8ALN. Name here is Ed. And that's sort of my question. I put it in the chat box a minute ago. Maybe you didn't see it. I'm new to D-Star. I have an ID5100A that I use in the vehicle. And I'm using my MacBook with Windows 10 and BlueDV to be on the net tonight. My question is, I don't see anywhere in BlueDV where I can enter my name so that it pops up as others pop up. I see that in the list there I'm shown as unknown, and I'd rather not be unknown. I don't know if that's just the nature of the beast with BlueDV or what. Over.
Well, that's unacceptable. let's see if we can get you some help. And I did see your post. It just scrolled up for me, and I have to keep moving it back and forth. So, stations, please, Kia. Well, sometimes I feel like if I had a cattle prod that I could use over the air, that I would. So, this is the I'm sorry, the Blue DV guys, and we have several of them that have participated in the net. I don't know if they're using the MacBook Pro running Windows 10 under Boot Camp, but it doesn't seem to me to be any real difference. But where do you set your name so it would be sent as a text behind the call sign, as you would typically see, let's say, with D-Star? Where do you set that up? Or is it in fact something that has to be in the radio? I'm assuming he's got that set up in the radio, but maybe I should ask. I mean, just innate ALN, and just thinking this through myself, given the lack of prompt key-ups, in your 5100, you have in the 4-character text immediately behind your call sign, in the my call, do you have your name put in there? Or is it clear to you that Blue DV is wiping that out in the event that it is there, or does it ignore it? Innate ALN, go ahead.
Okay, the Blue DV is not a hotspot. It's merely a client to pretend to be a radio. In the ID 5100A, it's very easy. There is, as you say, there's a slant line, and then you can put 4 characters after the slant line. I think I happen to put Ohio in there. But then in the 5100A, there is also then a text string that gets sent when you key up. And then it's more characters. I think I have in there Ed in Cincinnati, Ohio. And it scrolls across people's screen at the bottom while I'm talking to them. But I don't see anything like that in the Blue DV, and I hesitated to put anything in with my call sign because I thought that might cause other problems. It specifically says to do it in the radio, but not in Blue DV. Blue DV does not in any way use my radio, and I don't have a handheld. It is just a D-Star client. Over.
All right, got it. Stations, suggestions, please key up.
K6FE.
K6FED, Mr. Blue Spot. Well, I should say that. There's probably several of you guys hanging around, but I'm glad you are. Frank, go ahead. We have some doubling going on. Let me make sure. Okay, it's clear now. So I have both K6JM and K6FED, and we'll take K6FED first, only because I called him first, even though Jim snuck in ahead of time, but for some reason it doubled out. K6FED, welcome. Go ahead. Uh-oh, he may be talking and doesn't know that some doubling was going on. Let's just pause for a moment till he realizes that we're not listening to him. Stand by. K6FED and 6HKH, how copy?
N6HKH, K6FED.
I'm sorry to say that there was some multiple key-ups at one time, and even though I called you, there was you got knocked out. So we didn't hear a thing. Please try it again. K6FED, go ahead.
Okay, N6HKHK6FED. Mike, there's nowhere in the software where you can actually put the name. So what my recommendation is right next to the first item on the menu, there should be an update menu item. And what I would do is run through all three of the items and just update the host files, update the DMR file, and then update the DMR masters files. And then over time, your name will eventually start to appear. Over.
All right, we appreciate that. K6JM, go ahead.
Okay, and if I doubled there, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I use the BlueDV on my Android device, talking over Bluetooth to a BlueStack, which has a DV Mega plugged into it. Now I think of that as a hotspot. And I don't remember putting the name in, so it's been a while. So I think probably the previous commenter probably has it right, but yeah, I mean, first thing I do is just put in the name after the call sign, the slash, the call sign, a bunch of spaces, slash, the name, 4 characters, whatever. But I would go into the settings on BlueDV. If I were not in the middle of bathing a dog with very long hair, getting ready for dog show this weekend, I would go try it right this minute, but I can't. So maybe afterwards I'll comment if somebody else hasn't. But my name comes through when I use the BlueDV, so it's got to be a simple solution. Back to you, Mike, K6JM.
All right, Jim. Thank you for that. Go get the dog shampoo in your eyes. Anyone else have any thoughts? Please key up. All right, nothing seen or heard. So N8ALN posted in the shout box his question, and it's there for you to review. And if you care to, especially now, and have a reply that would be helpful, we greatly appreciate it. And as I mentioned, with any other questions that come up, especially those in the shout box, feel free to take it over to the current discussions folder if you're listening after the net concludes, so that we can all benefit by your thoughtfulness. And also, I want to acknowledge the VE5XEF posted a reply concerning the DV4 Mini and its control panel and the problems that continue to exist with that particular device. And, you know, it may be very well that his thought as to why we don't have a clamoring of DV4 Mini stations or stations that use that device keying up and participating. There's a long history involving the DV4 Mini going back to pre-DMR times, but that's neither here nor there. Stations have them, stations use them, and we're not going to tell anybody to throw them in the dumpster, for heaven's sakes, but we appreciate the posts and the thoughts on that. And, all right, so I don't have anything else pending right now in the way of stations or replies, but I did want to go back, and apparently I didn't do a very good job in describing this particular post concerning the FT70D. And while we did get a station that helped out, there's a suggestion that the larger issue here, and maybe of interest, is about using Fusion with OpenSpot. And while you know, we're grateful that KF9TA provided an answer for the settings in the open spot for using C4FM and how to set the modem. There appears to be other difficulties that are occurring to OpenSpot users in connecting to Fusion, and then from there to, well, wherever they happen to be putting Fusion to use, whether YSF reflector or otherwise. So, anyone have any comments generally about using OpenSpot, that is using Fusion with the OpenSpot, and any thought to help those that generally are having difficulties, regardless of the radio being utilized? Stations, please key up.
K6KD.
And there's John, K6KD. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I guess first, Mike, I'm not sure where you're. Maybe maybe people are texting you or you're emailing you stuff that there are issues, because I don't see that on the roundtable. The information I post pertains to setting the connector on the OpenSpot to work with YSF, the open source version of Fusion. It doesn't deal with the modem settings, which is the particular radio. So I think the connector settings I think work okay, but that's connecting to the network. But I don't use a Fusion radio with the OpenSpot. If I want to connect to YSF, I end up using a DMR radio, and that's my modem, and I work with the OpenSpot connector. But I'm not sure what the nature of the problem is, I guess.
Well, apparently neither do I. And yeah, it's not. I'm getting some follow-up to this, and it's not clear to me. I think it's been answered, and I don't think there's anything further on that. So unless, John, you have something concerning using an OpenSpot with Fusion that might be helpful to those with OpenSpots beyond the specific question that was posted in the Roundtable Forum board, was there anything else in your mind, or was there something that I jumped over and shouldn't have? K6KD, go ahead.
No, not as far as I'm concerned. I think it's covered. The question that was raised in the thread from what was it, from WR3Y Longboat, pertained to the modem setting, the radio setting, and that I think was answered. Unless somebody has another question about using a particular radio, that would be a good question. But aside from that, if it's just a question of how to connect with the connector settings, I think that's been handled. So as far as I'm concerned, the slate is clean. Back to you, Mike.
Well, thank goodness. I was breaking down to a sweat that we had a problem or question that was unanswered that could have been or should have been answered, but I'm glad that you're on top of it. All right, this is the Thursday Night D-Star Roundtable. N6HKH is with you, and we're going to take a pause at this moment to open it up for questions generally or topics that you'd like to have addressed or discussed. I've been moving this open segment around because if I do it later in the roundtable, I get complaints. If I do it too early in the roundtable, I get complaints. So I thought I'd just try sliding it in about a third and a halfway to allow stations with questions generally about D-Star and open source DMR. Well, I like to call it open digital systems of DMR, and we'll even inch towards Fusion a bit, although we're not quite there yet with the Constellation and the Kings of Digital, but still, we'll entertain anything. It doesn't have to be posted, doesn't have to be covered thus far. And topics that would be of interest, given the nature of this net, are also taken during our open segment. So, with this lengthy introduction, station, please key up.
KF9TA with a comment.
KF9TA, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, name here is Tom, and I would just like to, I should have made this comment earlier about the FT70D, that there are firmware updates for that posted on Yaesu's website, and those should probably be done first before anything, and that would probably also help any problems that anybody's having.
Firmware updates for the radio on the
Yeah, you cut out a little bit there, but yeah, there's firmware updates for the FT70D on Yaesu's website, and they strongly recommend that those should be done first before anything.
Got it. All right, that's what I wanted to hear. And I don't know if there are firmware updates that are issued by RF Shark for the open spot, but keeping your device current, even though the update may relate to things that, or to operations modes, radios that you don't always do, should not affect your favorite operating mode, but and probably should always be updated. So a good suggestion. All right, stations with questions generally, or stations that wish to have something discussed. It's open time here on the roundtable. Please key it. I have KB2FJD and K6JM. First, we say hello to KB2FJD. Go ahead.
Yeah, first, good evening to the net and everyone listening. I'm still having that issue with the open spot. I'm not getting any messages back when I connect to the XLX313. I've double checked this configuration in the radio a number of times and spoke with Will W4WWM, and he's verified that it's definitely working on the MMM with the MMVVM configuration, but the open spot I still have not heard any messages as far as connect or anything back from the XLX server. If there's anybody else that has any further information or can lead me in the right direction, I appreciate it. This is KB2FJD.
Got it. Interesting question. Stations, please key up. Well, I'm having a tough time with this. Maybe I'm not getting stations that are keying up showing up on my screen, which makes no sense. So, open spot users, you're connecting to XLX313. This station's not hearing connecting messages or anything indicating that he is, in fact, successfully connected to one of the modules on our 4K transcoding server reflector. Should he get any? And if he isn't, why not? And what should he do about it? Stations, let's help him out. Please key up.
K6KD.
K6KD, go ahead.
Well, I don't think this is new. I thought this was covered last week, so it may not be the solution. But the open spot reports status on Talk Group 9. So on the various commands, like for example the 4000, 4001, 4002 on the radio, you'd want to have associated with that channel a receive group that includes Talk Group 9. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head. Back to Nat.
Well, irrespective of whether it was covered last week or not, I mean, the station is asking for help. So, we have discussed this, but it's sometimes difficult to, it's not in. Let's just say it's not terribly intuitive. So you have to be listening on Talk Group 9, receiving a Talk Group 9, and let me first ask if KB2FJD, is that how you have your radio programmed? Go ahead.
Yes, my receive group is Talk Group 9, and I'm currently, I get connected on 4002 or 4001. Matter of fact, I'm on 4001 right now. But when I connect to 5000, I get no response back from the open spot while it's connected to the XLX server.
KG.
All right, the KG5TNK, what do you think? Go ahead.
Sorry, I may have missed that last. That was me keying in. I was switching my open spot to AMR so I can look at the settings in it. What I have up there. And I know when I was trying to figure it out, setting my modem, it was not just selecting XLX, but also switching the MMDMV on the modem settings, I believe it was.
Yes. Yeah, I do have the MMDVM setting on the open spot. I did follow the procedures that were posted on the roundtable website for the opens, and I have that configuration in, but still I don't get any messages back from. I would imagine that these messages would come through the transcoder from the D-Star side, but I'm not getting anything.
Well, yes, selecting connectors, homebrew, MMD, VM, and the next group down, just below your frequency, instead of homebrew, MMDVM. I was trying everything. I missed that one little dot, and didn't want to work too well for me. Along with the Talk Group 9, I was keying in. I could see myself hitting the reflector, but I wasn't hearing anything until I put that Talk Group 9 in. Everything's going to come back on that, even though every time I key is on 4001.
Yeah, I have my Talk Group 9 in my receive group. I can hear you fine when I'm talking on 4001. I can hear people fine when I'm talking on 4002. When I connect to 5000, I get no response. I'm not sure. What should we hear, or what should happen when I connect 5000 in the my radio? What messages should I get back from the XLX server? Can anyone tell me that?
All right, should we expect a response from the XLX server in the configuration that FJG described? Please key up. Does the XLX 313 transcoding server give any kind of response, regardless of the gateway that's used or the radio, or is this something specific to just OpenSpot and DMR? I mean, what are we to hear? Do we get a beep? Do we get a Roger beep? Do we get a double beep? Does somebody sound a horn? What do you hear? Or does 313 just silently say you're good to go? Stations, please key up.
K6KD.
K6KD, go ahead.
The 5000 should be the status. It should hear link to and link to the talk group that you're linked to. But I just want to make sure the other gentleman said that when he talks on 4001, I think what he should mean, I assume he means that after connecting to 4001, he switches over to a channel where that is specifically talk group 9, not talk group 9 in the receive group, but talk group 9 on the channel. I assume that's what was meant. But yeah, you should be getting the status, but I don't know offhand why you're not hearing it. Back to net.
Okay, so what's the deal with talk group 5000 that he mentioned? Does that have anything to do with it, or is that something that is not part of the scheme? K6KD, go ahead.
Well, it's really a manual dial private contact to 5000 is to trigger a status, and basically with the OpenSpot on any of the XLXs, with OpenSpot with not doing any remapping, but just straight input. The 4000 is disconnect. 4001 connect to talk group 1, 4002 to talk group, or to 4002 to the second module B, or the 4002. 5000 is the status, but when you talk, you turn it back to you don't connect to 4001 and then leave it to 4001 just because you can hear because you have receive group talk group 9. You have to explicitly turn it back to the channel talk group 9 and use that. But 5000 should be the status, but I don't know in this case why he's not hearing it.
All right. Well, let's see. So, yeah, I don't think we're getting really anywhere with this. We've had some great suggestions on radio setup, but it appears the station has, as he sees it, set up correctly, consistent with the suggestions. But anyone else have any ideas on this specific question? Please key up. All right, so KB2FJD, what I suggest is, I didn't hear anything that you haven't already thought about, or that you haven't already had correctly set in your radio, but you might take a look and keep an eye on the shout box to see if anyone who listens to this net by recording or on the podcast posts a suggestion for to resolve, why you're not hearing connection commands, link commands, or beeps, whatever, through your radio, which you apparently certainly should. So I just don't seem to have stations with further suggestions. So we'll see how this goes or progresses. Let us know if you do find the fix so that we can all benefit from that. But I do want to get to K6JM, who's been standing by for quite a while. We appreciate that, Jim. Hopefully, you haven't fallen into the dog bath. K6JM, go ahead.
Oh, it was way worse than that. The dog sat down, pulled the earphone out of my ear, and when I came back, I had lost my connection to XRF 002 Alpha. So I had to go in the other room, and anyway, I'm back. I think it's all been covered. I don't think I have anything to contribute more for what I heard after I got things going in. And so sorry about that. Back to you, K6JM.
State what you thought you were going to say just for the good of the order?
Well, after the dog sat down, this is a critical time. You've seen the pictures of a pulley, right, with the dreadlocks to the ground. And in the middle of the bath, it's pretty dramatic. And I've completely forgotten. Back to you, K6JM.
No problem. You've earned a pass. All right, I think, well, here, we've got, I apologize, just was going to say that I don't have any other stations listed, but I do. I have N4XNR. Go ahead. Well, I had a key up on my screen from N4XNR, and, it was inadvertent or accidental key up. That's no big to do. We all do it. Just let me know, and I'll take you off the list, but I hate to pass over a station that keyed up and wanted to participate. N4XNR, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi, this is N4XNR. The name is Harold, and I'm in Huntsville, Tennessee. And I was just turning another radio on and accidentally keyed up. I was changing from my HT to the 5100 to listen to your old round table, but I didn't have no comment or no question. N4XNR, back to net control.
No problem at all. Thanks for letting me know. All right, we're in the open segment, open questions, topics you need to hear about, things that are bugging you. Stations, please key up.
W4WW.
And we say hello to Will, W4WWM. Go ahead.
Okay, guys, good evening. From the Brown Tape Net. Another very good net. I've been listening and watching the football game at the same time. New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A home state football team. Buccaneers. But anyway, I just wanted to give you an intermittent comment about what Tom spoke about earlier, was the StarNet group. Tom has been doing a lot of good work programming and making things work. So those that are interested in a StarNet group is more than welcome to come over and go ahead and talk to us about it. And we think it's a pretty good program. Of course, we've been running it for quite some time, but Tom did some special things, and we can now look at the website that he posted and see who's actually logged in to those StarNet groups, and actually track those live StarNet groups. We had a couple of stations asked us on a couple of other nets, and we established something like that, and we done it, and so we just wanted to share it with everybody. And Tom did a very good job explaining it earlier, but I just wanted to add to StarNet groups, if you haven't tried to talk to, they're just really like a talk group on DMR. You just route to them. You pretty much route talk groups in DMR. You just route to those Starnet talk groups and actually could have a round table there as well, so to speak. But anyway, just wanted to get in there and make that comment and just put a little emphasis on the devil on the partnet. And you want to take a look at the website. Check out Tom's link there and go over and look at the Starnet groups. And if you want to try those, they're one in the route group and just like a talk group. Anyway, thanks for letting me in, Mike, and we'll turn it back over to you, and we'll say hello to the group again. Just W4WW.
All right, well, appreciate that. Stations, please key up.
K6JM.
K6JM. If you can safely do so, go ahead.
All right, I'll do my best. The saga continues, but the FT70 discussion, I think it was K9TA, talked about that, and he mentioned there was another other dog talking, mentioned that you got to keep your firmware up to date on the radio, and I have an FT2D, and they brought out a new version of the firmware in last week of September, and I jumped on it right away, and I had some problems with an MDVM host, not being able to do everything I want, and I'm just curious if other people with the latest firmware for the FT2D Fusion radio have had any problems with an MDVM host software. Back to my K6JM.
All right, let's see if we can find some. Stations, please key up. FT70D users, what problems have you had? Especially with firmware updates. Please key up and let us know.
K6JM.
Well, I should have said, as you did, Jim, that problems with MMDVM, more specifically, but you said that plainly and nobody responded. K6JM, though, you keyed up again. Go ahead.
Okay, just to be clear, I have an FT2D, a little bit different radio. In the latest firmware was interesting because they released the firmware, and I went through the process, which is a little laborious, and then I discovered that their programming software, which is free, which is nice, but then they said, well, the programming software no longer works with radios for the new firmware. But then a couple of weeks later, they got out the new version of the free software, so I'm not going to complain. But that was kind of interesting. But the problem I had was when you're in MMDVM, I'm using YSF Gateway, and you press the X button on the Wires X button, and you want to connect in Wires X mode, so you can send Wires X commands to change to different reflectors. And it wouldn't always connect. It was pretty good before the update and not so good after. That was the question I had. If nobody has it, maybe I'll read about it on the internet, but I just thought I'd ask here. K6JM.
My mistake on the radio. Let's try this again without me interfering. Stations, please key up.
WB6DT.
WB6DTB. We appreciate it. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is WV60 to be named here as Dave. And I do have the FT2D, and I did do the firmware update. I didn't seem to have the problem doing the Wires X connection to it. I'm running Pi-Star multi-mode, and I guess the only thing that, and Jim probably already knows this, but when you run multi-mode, I have a DV Mega with a Raspberry Pi, and you have to actually key up on YSF to make sure that the DV Mega has switched to that mode, and then hit the Wires X key, and then I haven't had any problem connecting to it to change reflectors like Jim was saying. Go ahead.
Alrighty. So K6JM, with that in mind, anything further, go ahead.
That's a really good point, and I did discover that. And I changed in the YSF, in the MMDVM INI file, I changed the net, RF mode hang to a little bit longer value. So once I did get connection in fusion mode, that it would stay there for a while. But that's a really good point. Back to you, K6JM.
Alrighty, appreciate that. Stations, please, Kia. Alrighty, nothing seen or heard there. Well, moving on to some other topics, and by the way, if you guys would prefer that I do open subjects later on in the net, I seem to get a better response, even though I get more complaints. I'd be happy to do that. And I do note that there is a football game on. I realize that we compete with Thursday Night Football, and I hate to even admit that that is a problem for nets that run on Thursday nights, and we're not the only ones. We're about the only ones that in this time slot. But I appreciate those that have the radio on as well. And now that the game is over, hopefully some of you can think to bring some of your questions, comments, thoughts, and help to the roundtable, since we have plenty of time left to take those. So, one of the questions that occasionally comes up, I get inquiries about nets. That is, can we use the constellation of X reflectors for nets? And it's no secret that the answer is yes. We, welcome those nets. I mean, they certainly just can't be any old thing, and it can't be just generalized listing of, those who wish to talk about how to cook meat and potatoes in a crock pot. Please come here and expect people to start talking. There has to be a moderator or net control. A specific topic in mind doesn't have to be absolutely specific, but you have to have something to get people to want to come to your net. And it has to be something generally that would intrigue people and get them to join. We don't expect any nets, no matter where you might host them, to have a pile of stations lined up ready to go. But the answer to some of these inquiries certainly is sure. We have got not only time during the week, other than there's a net running Saturdays at I think it's 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and of course this one, but there's certainly plenty of time and space on the constellation on Module A, but more importantly, there are tons of modules throughout the constellation that, including the transcoding server, on which you can hold a net. It doesn't have to be on Module A. It can be pretty much anywhere else, but, the interest seems to be in having the greatest amount of coverage. But if you have a net that you'd like to start or move, we are more than welcome to put you on board. Just a minute. And just out of curiosity, I thought I'd ask if, first of all, anybody is thinking about starting a net that would be of interest. Doesn't have to be specifically what we do here. In fact, it probably would be better if it wasn't, but nevertheless, it doesn't have to be solely amateur radio. I'm not sure how well nets go over. They're not somehow related to this hobby, but there are many successful nets that talk generally about something other than amateur radio, but the commonality is to get those guys who are amateurs together in one spot at one time on a scheduled net to talk about things that are of interest to them, but not necessarily directly related to the hobby. That is, well, you guys understand what I'm saying. So, first of all, if there's anyone that would like to start a net, let me know. But more importantly, what are there any ideas for a net that you thought of that you don't necessarily have to be the net control? I know how it is. Not everybody wants to do this. It does take a little bit more effort than simply sliding in behind the mic 5 minutes before the net starts and off you go. I would like to think it would be that easy, but it isn't. But still, are there any topics for nets that would be of interest to you to help put the resources of this constellation of reflectors to use, to better use, and to greater use than it is now? Your thoughts, please, Kia. Well, now let's not start doubling and piling up here. I'd like to take stations in order, and but I'm sad to say nobody keyed up. It just seems to me that there's people have hobbies, and I realize there are some nets that cater to certain kinds of hobbies. People have occupations, and they like to connect with hams that also do those occupations. Sometimes there are, outside interests that have nothing to do with amateur radio that you'd kill to be able to participate in that. And I know that many of you have thought about this, or at least have expressed interest or looked for interesting nets. There are a fair number of stations that, truly love participating in nets, at least listening to them. And, they hop around from net to net, depending upon the time, and if they don't work or they work. But I thought some suggestions from those listening of new nets they'd like to have. Of course, we're expecting the nets hopefully to be run here on the constellation of X reflectors. I can't think of a better place to put such nets. But what is it that you're not hearing about as far as net topics that you'd like to see started? You don't have to volunteer to run it. You don't have to organize it. We'll help take care of that. But what do you think? Station, please, yeah.
K6JM.
K6JM, go ahead.
I would love ARL or somebody to answer that question, to find out how many other hobbies typical avid hams have. I'm into dogs. I think John K6KD has a dog and is very happy about that. And you find other people. But I feel like at dog shows, I'll run into, maybe every other year, I'll run into somebody where I'll see a license plate with a ham call sign. But it's not a lot of overlap with hams and people who are into dogs. That at least they'll talk about it. And so I think there's a question of how many other hobbies your hams have. This is an incredible country with so many different hobbies. Used to be able to go into a store with one of those 100 magazine store where they just got them lined up, boating, radio controlled boats, and on and on and on. The hobbies are just incredible in this country, but I just don't know how much hands do that. So that's the question. Wish we could do a survey. Back to you, K6JM.
Well, yeah, you would think ERRL might ask that question, although they may see it as being self-defeating because this is a hobby, and maybe they don't want to get people tied up in any other hobbies, which doesn't make any sense. A lot of people are into hunting, gun ownership, target practice, and there are guys that like to cook. There are people that do all kinds of interesting things, and it might be fun, I would think, for them to be part of it. But then, I know how it is. You don't want to be necessarily the person that says, I would really like to see a net on this, and thinking that now you're all of a sudden committed, and that's certainly not the case. And I was trying to do somewhat of a survey. I was hoping to get some help, but as with a lot of proposed topics or discussions, it's relating to not what we talk about here, but we've got a lot of space, so to speak, on the constellations and the linked reflectors. And, well, I guess you could put it on a standalone reflector because still people can connect to that reflector and talk and do their things. It's just not going to be linked elsewhere, but, you never know. So it just, I get inquiries and nothing seems to come of it. And I'm here to say that we will facilitate getting your net going and even help advertise it in the sense of getting people to come on over and listen. And, we'll even, grab somebody by the collars and threaten them into being a net controller moderator if that becomes necessary. So, but it's hard to do when you don't know what's of interest to many. We know what interests those that participate here. So, but you're right, Jim. And, maybe a survey might be the way to go. Just that, I don't know, sometimes surveys, it's just, you don't even get responses to them. And, if nobody has any interest in something, why do it? I'm keenly aware of that, and I try not to talk about things that are of no interest to anybody. Although sometimes it's difficult to tell when there's no key. All right, anything further on net possibilities? Maybe, look, you're welcome to email me if you want, n6hkh@me.com. You can post a response in the shout box. I'll see it, however you want to do it, and catch me on the constellation later on. But don't let an opportunity to talk about something on the air on a scheduled basis of something that interests you. All right, anything further, please key up. All right, nothing there. And the Pro boards went down. They're having a problem. I am not able to load it here. I'm not certain. Sometimes I wonder if it's me or not, but it appears that they're having a problem, and I'm getting timeout errors, and can't seem to, it appears to be down. So I apologize for that. I think that we've covered most everything that's been posted, but I can't see the shout box anymore. Of course, if it's truly down, you wouldn't see the shout box and didn't post anything, and that means that I wouldn't see it. But anyway, I thought I'd mention that. Hopefully we'll get that resurrected fairly quickly. Let me take a break just a moment. Let me just see. K6KD, is Pro boards down on your side as well? K6KD, go ahead.
Yes, it is, Mike. Hopefully, just a few minutes, so it'll be up, but it is down.
All right, thanks, John. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me or my connection, so we'll get that back up pretty soon, and hang on to those shouts or the chats, and we'd like to have you post them. So, there's another issue that comes up from our discussions, is particularly the ones over the last few weeks, where we've talked about the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of from the perspective of someone. Let me preface it this way, and so you can understand some of the communications that I've had on this. You have people that are been on D-Star for some time. They have a Raspberry Pi and a DVAP, for example, and they're having difficulty deciding, what do I need? I'm willing to invest in another hotspot or gateway to be able to get on the transcoding server, or for that matter, to get on, the newer variety of X reflectors, and they're willing to put some money down on it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to them because they've got D-Star Commander, for example, loaded, and now they think that we're telling them, no, you got to throw D-Star Commander out. Well, you can keep it on the current hotspot, but what is the equivalent to D-Star Commander on my new device? And is that an operating system? Is that an image? And what's the story with DMR Gateway? You guys have described what DMR Gateway does and why I should have it, but is that a part of MMDVM? Is this a separate piece of software on my SD card? Do I have to load it as an image, or is this something that my device will load automatically? And for those that are, let's say, looking at a DV Mega or similar, single board card, is that, and what do I have to do with, if I get an open spot, do I have to load that with the same software, MMDVM and this DMR gateway, and how do I go about doing that? Just a minute. And we also hear from people that have just a DMR radio, and they want to participate here. They want to talk to people on D-Star. They want to check out a DMR reflector. Or let's just say they have a Fusion radio just sitting in their hand. Well, let's skip Fusion just for the moment. But there's, I suspect, a need to perhaps go back over this, but in a different view. And that is, we understand the different components you have, but the confusion seems to be, what exactly do I need to be able to either put my DMR radio to use on the 4K transcoder, or to put my DMR radio to use on a DMR reflector, or to take my D-Star hotspot and, all right, I'm going to buy something that'll work multi-mode, but what happened to, D-Star Commander? I realize these are fairly basic questions, but in our prior discussions, we've described the hardware you should use, and we've even talked about the radio. W6KD did a great job of that last Thursday. But the backlash, not the backlash, but I guess the feedback, there's always backlashing. I thought Bob did a great job. But there just seems to be a conceptual concern, and it's not necessarily being answered by people at the candy stores, candy shop, the ham radio vendors. And so I thought I'd, see if I could get a station, and I'll pick on people if I have to go back this down a bit and talk about more from an understanding of, let's say, a D-Star with a hotspot user, or a guy with a DMR radio only, and where do you go next? And what do you seek to accomplish? And is there a way of not having to load software or avoid this altogether? Or what do I do to get this going? That's my best way of summarizing some of these messages and comments that I've collected after we have these discussions here on the roundtable. I'm hoping I'm making some sense as time wears on and caffeine leaks out of my system. But let me see if anyone would like to help with this. Please, Kia.
K6JM.
K6JM. Hopefully you've been able to towel yourself off, or at least change into dry clothing. Go ahead.
Well, he's only 3, so it only takes 5 hours to do a complete bath and dry. Next year it'll be 6 hours. But we're in the break between out of the bath and ready to start the drying. Okay, yeah, that's a good question, Mike. And I guess I don't have an open spot, but from everything I can tell from reading and talking to people, and it sure seems like a good place to start would be open spot. It would give you, with your DMR radio, a chance to do various things. And it's pretty easy to get going. So that would be my first suggestion. If you like to tinker a little bit, and by that I mean configure a Raspberry Pi or something, and you don't have to be a Linux expert because of these really almost complete images you can download for your Pi SD card. That would be my next suggestion. I mean, for example, let's say you had your DMR radio and what you were doing today was talking to local DMR repeaters. They might be DMR Mark, they might be Brandmeister or something, but then you get yourself a DMR hotspot, and you can use multi-mode hardware and software, but just configure it just for DMR. Then you have a chance to you can use the different DMR networks. You can use DMR Plus, Brandmeister. You can get into the XLX world. So all of a sudden you have more opportunities, and of course you can then get into the transcoding environment from DMR and get over to D-Star. So there's a lot of interesting things you can do, and without really going too far, without getting too heavily into it, just because the KB5 RAB image and the Pi-Star images are so complete and really easy to get going. And as far as the hotspot itself, it could be several things. I have a DV Mega, and one of them plugs into the BlueStack, and I use what is it called, BlueDV. Another one plugs into a Pi, and I use an MDVM and related. So it's really fun because it just can keep expanding and expanding, and that's kind of part of the fun. Back to you, Mike, K6JM.
All right, Jim. Thank you. We appreciate that. Stations, please, Kia. Well, I can't just let this drop. Let me go through my list here and find someone I can pick on. I know I don't do this too often, but K6KD, I know you're out there. What say you? Go ahead.
Okay, well, I agree with what Jim said. Maybe I'll just say it a little bit differently. First I agree. The open spot is a one-stop solution. It'll take you wherever you want to go. As far as you raised a question about D-Star Commander. My opinion is D-Star Commander remains the best image for D-Star, specifically for D-Star. And that means, so when you ask about, can you get to the transcoding servers? Can you get to different XLX? Can you get to XRF? The answer is yes, you can do that all from D-Star and have all the features of D-Star. Now, if you want a multi-mode hotspot, you asked before about how do these things fit together. DMR gateway, MMDVM host, Pi-Star, KB5RAD image, and all. How does it all fit together? Basically, the Pi-Star and the KB5 are images that you, just like D-Star Commander, they're images that you can download either one of those to your to your Raspberry Pi, with a DV Mega, for example. And you've got, in that package, you have MMDVM, you've got DMR Gateway, you have YSF to get to the Fusion, you can get to D-Star. The difference between the KB5RAV image and Pi-Star is just the user interface, but the software is the same. And the reason we've talked about DMR Gateway separately is because it came out after MMDVM. So, but it's not again, it comes with the images. I don't know if I missed anything. It seems like I am. Anyway, back to you, Mike.
Well, no, well, actually, yes, you did a bit, because I guess what I was looking for is you have somebody that's familiar with D-Star Commander, and they're willing to buy another device, and let's just say they're going to buy a DV Mega or something else, and the concern is, all right, so is DMR Gateway sufficient, or do I have to load MMDVM on it as an image, and what do I do with the DMR Gateway, and is there a way of, well, you kind of suggest there's a way of avoiding this all, but where, I guess I'm having difficulty trying to coalesce all these concerns into one. Well, you basically covered it, but perhaps you could go over the options from both the standpoint of a D-Star user with a Raspberry Pi and DVAP to be able to participate in the transcoding, as well as separately a guy that has just a DMR radio and has been using repeaters and wants to get in on the open digital systems and connect to a transcoder such as XLX313. Does that make any sense to you? And if not, feel free to slap me back and say no. But K6KD, go ahead.
Okay, well, let me approach it this way. A D-Star user who already has D-Star Commander with a DVAP or MMDV or DV Mega on a Raspberry Pi can go anywhere in the D-Star world, including transcoding servers, but going there from the D-Star side of things. If the D-Star owner, the D-Star user wants, I think one of the scenarios you said is willing to get another hotspot, or a DMR user wants to get a hotspot, aside from the open spot, that'll work for everyone. But aside from that, if the hardware choices would be typically a Raspberry Pi, a DV Mega. I mean, and there's variations, but this is just to kind of keep it simple, and an image. And it's just like before with D-Star Commander. You downloaded D-Star Commander, put it on a card, ran a program, and then popped it in your Raspberry Pi, and you were all set to go. It's very similar with these other images. The two images are the KB5RAV image is one option. Put it on an SD card and configure it. You're all set to go. The other option is Pi-Star. Put it on an SD card and configure it, and you're all set to go. The software is the same. The difference is the interface and how you configure it. The Pi-Star is a complete web interface. The KB5RAB image is a desktop GUI interface. Both of them allow you to get under the covers with Linux. So, your options are and that software with either the KB5RAB image or Pi-Star includes everything you need. It includes MMDVM, DMR gateway, YSF gateway. It's all included in the image. So the options are KB5RAB or Pi-Star. As far as there may be others, but those are the two I am familiar with. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, so with that explanation, rather than me guessing at what's on everybody's minds, let me see if stations have questions about, thus far. Stations, please key up. Alrighty, nothing there. So what about the station that has a DMR radio? And that's all he's got. What's the next step? K6KD, go ahead.
Well, the next step is if you just have a DMR radio, it's either get an open spot or get something on the equivalent of a Raspberry Pi and DV Mega, and then get one of those two images and load them on there and configure it. But then you've got to program the radio. And that's for a lot of people, that might be the biggest hurdle. We've talked about that before with the code plugs. The only thing I'll say is that the way you program the radio is different from the OpenSpot compared to MMDVM with DMR Gateway with the other images. So depending upon what hotspot you have, you program your radio accordingly. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, and what resources are available to understand how to program your radio to work with an OpenSpot, for example, if that's the choice, or any other gateway that listens to your DMR radio and transmits out on whatever you set it to transmit out on. So, is there a resource where people can take a look to learn how to program their radio? Or is this something that can be quickly discussed here on the net, which I doubt is the case, but I thought I'd ask. K6KD, go ahead.
Well, as far as the resources to program the radio, we've got the code plugs, we've got some of the parameters that you use that's posted here, but, as far as tutorials, if you go onto YouTube and search for videos on how to program the MD390 or MD380 or the others, there are a lot of tutorials that people post. So they're just not in one place. You gotta go to YouTube or Google and search for it. But then there are forums for radio programming when you're using the Pi-Star. There's a Facebook Pi-Star support forum. There's a Yahoo group, MMDVM, and there's also for the OpenSpot, SharkRF has a forum. So there's resources. It's it's just not all in one place. Back to net.
Back to the help that code plugs provide. All right, so let me see if anyone has any questions about any of this. Please key up. All right, nothing there. Well, is there a different approach, or have you tried one method of connecting to the transcoding reflector, or for that matter, participating in transcoding generally, that you found to be unsavory or you're dissatisfied with? I realize there are devices that people hate, people love. On the other hand, has your experience with specifically XLX313 been worthy of your time and investment? And is there one preferred way to go, especially from someone who's sitting here on D-Star and not able to do much more than D-Star, albeit you can connect to any X reflector, but you're not going to be able to, you can talk to people on DMR if I understand that correctly. On the other hand, it seems to me that there are, and it's important to note that you don't have to abandon D-Star Commander. You can use that. But it's when you decide, I want to get a new radio and I want it to be a DMR radio, or you already have a DMR radio and you're sick of the, repeaters, or, want to expand your horizons beyond, trying to search out people on a talk group or talk groups on Brandmeister than having the QSY somewhere else. There is a logical place for transcoding, and more specifically the 4K transcoding server we have. But you got to do something a little bit different. Any thoughts? We'll take you now. Please, Kia. All right, John, I appreciate it, and I'm hoping that we hit on some of the concerns that people have. I mean, these things have been talked about, and you can go back through the shout boxes to see some of the discussion topics. There's a lot posted in the Roundtable Forum board, which unfortunately at this very moment you can't get to for reasons that are beyond me because that system's down. But, a lot of time and effort spent by stations that put together papers that post, multi-paragraph, posts in various folders in various categories in the Roundtable Forum board, the purpose of which is to help everybody else out. And I know that we've got a fair number of stations that are new to, multi-protocol or sometimes dual mode reflectors that are, just about everybody can be on an X reflector. So unless all you have is a DMR radio, but then that's even simpler because you can just buy an open spot. But anyway, I'm hoping that we have helped a few out, and if there's something we stepped over, or if you find either my discussion or anybody else's discussion confusing or off the mark, please feel free to speak up and say so, because we'll be happy to get to it. So at this point, the topics that I have planned have been hit, and besides those that I mentioned, there's nothing new that has come in. So let me see what's on your mind and find out if there's something that, especially now that football is over with, that you'd like to hear about, or a question that you've been holding on to about something that was discussed during the earlier 2.25 hours that we've been running, that you'd like to either have revisited or question answered. Let's take you now. Please key up. Well, did anybody post anything on the Roundtable Forum board or the shout box that got eaten up and disappeared because the pro boards went down that you'd like to verbalize and perhaps get an answer to or start a discussion concerning? Please key up. Would anyone like to make a presentation about anything even remotely related to the subject of this net? We'd be happy to entertain that. By having you entertain us, please key up.
K6JM.
K6JM. Your turn.
Okay, two comments. One, when you were talking earlier about if people had an interest in possibly starting a net on the Constellation, I was going to ask if there were anybody out there who could be a moderator, maybe somebody who knows quite a bit about ham radio, a lot about D-Star and other modes, maybe with an FM quality voice. I was just curious if there was anybody like that out there. The other one is I was doing some searches here while listening, looking for DV4 Mini and whether it had the ability to be, can get to DMR in the sense of DMR Plus, and that also they had that deal with DMR Mark. But the question was, can it get to other DMR networks such as the XLX masters? And I haven't found anything yet. So, Mike, you might want to consider putting up a little topic in current discussions or somewhere, just asking if other people who come along later might want to comment on if there's a way to tweak the DMR, the DV4 Mini software, the control panel and so forth to get to an XLX DMR master. Back to you. This is K6JM.
That is an excellent suggestion as to the post requesting the way to connect on the DV4 Mini, and I will do that as soon as ProBards comes back up. I suspect what will happen is it's just a matter of the system being down, maybe it's maintenance, maybe it's who knows what. That the post will be there and we'll be able to move the shoutbox off the shoutbox history before it all disappears. But I agree that is a great way to more generally post help from those that have fiddled with the DV4 Mini, because we have had a couple stations, and I looked them up. I won't mention names because I don't want to embarrass anyone. I don't want to force anyone to do anything they don't want to do unless it's something that I might be interested in seeing, but that's really another story. And see if we can get some help on that. And the answer to net controls, as you imagine, I talk with other net controllers. There are available net controllers. And if someone has in earnest an idea for a net, there are people that I know with that are licensed, that are familiar enough, at least with D-Star, and they're slowly getting caught up with the open system DMR and open system fusion, that is the DMR reflectors and the YSF reflectors and the related. MMDVM may still be a distant topic that they have yet to fully embrace, but such people have great radio voices, and they sound good on the air, and they're available. So this is my long-winded way of saying, you have a net, you have a topic for a net, I'll get a net controller for you. That is not a problem. So, your suggestions for nets, feed them to me. If you don't want to verbalize them, you don't want to keep the mic, I get it. But don't let what would interest you just go on the by and by. Post it someplace. Send me an email. Get me on the air during off hours if you like, and let me know, because I've got the net control that the moderators who would like to do this. Some of them have a net that disappeared, and others simply would like to start, but they're not. They're going to be familiar with. They're familiar with at least D-Star. But frankly, if the net's about just a minute. If the net has nothing to do with D-Star other than knowing how to operate on it, I guess that may be what you're talking about, Jim, the capability to be here, certainly without the capability to be on an X reflector, their use is limited, but, they can do, some of these guys would do a pretty good job moderating, a net of interest to many, so, I'm hoping we can get some nets going. There are never enough nets. And not all have to be called roundtable. And not all have to be led by somebody that doesn't mind taking up all the airtime as net control, and are happy to let others do the talking and just be a moderator. So, but I appreciate that, Jim. So, is there any other reason for us to continue with the roundtable? It seems to be petering away. I appreciate some of the key-ups we've had here in the past half hour or so, but I'm beginning to wonder if we're just about at the end of things, but it's hard to tell without hearing from you guys. So let me know, what did we not do? What do we need to do? What's in it for the remainder of the roundtable, or should we just, pull the doors in? Stations, please key up. All right, final warning for those that sit on your hands until the end of the roundtable before keying up. Oh, my voice is starting to go already. Been probably, hitting sideways. Anyway, so this may be a good time to end it, but I'm good for a little bit. So if you're a procrastinator and you don't like to key up until the last minute, and been waiting for me to give final warning, this is it. Key up and say what you have, or you got to sit on it until next Thursday. Final call, stations, please key up. All right, I'm not going to arm wrestle you everybody over this, so we're going to call it. We've been running a little bit, almost 2.5 hours. Can't complain too much. I always like to thank the stations that do participate in whatever manner, because without your participation, frankly, I get up out of this chair and leave, because there would be no roundtable. I can't thank enough the stations that support this roundtable, both in technical expertise and in other manners, such as the podcast and providing the Broadcastify. And I don't often give their call signs and, often enough and give them credit. And I'm going to do so again. W6KD, K6KD, KK6MYS, WB5EKU, and WA6JFK. They all put time in on this. And frankly, I also greatly appreciate the stations that take the time to send me email. K6JM does that, and I greatly appreciate his thoughts. And there are others that do the same, offering suggestions and some, help and insight and what they like and what they don't like. And, I read them all. I don't always get back to everybody in a timely manner, but I certainly try. So for you podcast folks, it'll be up and running by no later than midday tomorrow. Tomorrow for me being Friday. The Shoutbox, we moved to Shoutbox History, but I've already talked to you about that. Be sure to, if you can, come around here on Saturdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, which would be 000 UTC, for our D-Star Users Group net, hosted by Jeff BE6DV. It's a net that jumps off of a D-Star Users Group on Facebook, and it's always fun to listen to and participate in, and you don't have to be a member or be a subscriber or follower or whatever you want to call it on this particular Facebook group, but it is D-Star. I guess it's all that really matters, and we're looking for more nets, because you've heard plenty of that from me. So now that I'm about to call the net, I, in my mind, know that I have to head down the hallway, and need to do that now. Hopefully the Roundtable Forum Board will be back up soon. for those that are itching to post some things before we either clean out the shout box